What if Ned Stark had found a way to reach his son before the infamous feast of the twins? Imagine, for one chilling moment, that the father's wisdom cut to the fog of war and the stubborn pride of youth. Instead of marching blindly into Walder Frey's hall with music playing and daggers waiting in the dark, Robb Stark carries with him a whispered warning. Beware the bridge lord. Beware the bread and salt. Beware the smile that hides a trail. That single message, a few words carried across ravens and desperate hands, becomes a crack in destiny's wall, and the bloodbath we know as the Red Wedding begins to unravel before it even starts. But if Robb Stark never fell that night, Westeros itself would never be the same again. The shock ripples through the twins a moment the Freys realize their prey is not so easy to gut. Robb, though young, now sees the banquet for what it is, an ambush cloaked in song and steel. The dire wolves grow restless, gray wind snarling at shadows, and Catelyn Stark's sharp eyes catch the strange way the minstrels linger near their instruments, the way armored men hide their hands beneath cloaks. A chill runs through the air long before the knives are drawn. With Ned's warning burning in his mind, Robb plays along, feigning ignorance, but his hand stays close to his sword. The hall that once reeked of treachery now quivers with tension, because this is no longer a lamb walking to slaughter. It is a wolf who has scented the trap. Now pause. Can you imagine the Freys' faces when their plot begins to unravel? They expected arrogance, drunken celebration, and young fools blind to danger. Instead, they find Robb calculating, watchful, exchanging subtle glances with his mother and bannermen. Every toast feels hollow. Every song feels like a drumbeat of doom, because the Starks are not as unsuspecting as they were in our timeline. And here's the insane part. If Walder Frey senses a trap is discovered, does he still spring it? Or does he hesitate, unsure whether victory is certain? That hesitation alone might be enough to save Robb's life, and with it, the entire northern cause. The warning transforms Robb's choices. Instead of trusting Frey hospitality, he signals his men quietly, shifts their seating, and ensures loyal guards stand near every door. Bolton eyes gleam across the hall, but even Roose can feel the weight of change. Without the element of surprise, betrayal becomes far more dangerous. The North remembers, and tonight, the young wolf refuses to be butchered like sheep. Gray wind's growls echo through the twins, and for the first time, Frey guards hesitate to reach for hidden blades. Because here's the twist. You can't slaughter a wolf that already bares its teeth. Think about the ripple effect. Catelyn Stark, her heart shattered in the real history by the sight of her son dying in her arms, now finds herself grasping his wrist in a silent pact of survival. She knows Walder Frey's nature better than any of them. Suspicion coils through her veins as tightly as love. And when her son leans in and whispers, "Father was right, we're walking into a trap," her blood runs cold, but her mind sharpens. The Tully daughter who once played politics at Riverrun now stands as the shield of her family's legacy. She knows what must be done. The songs grow louder, the wine flows thicker, but beneath it all lies an unspoken truth. The Stark line will not end here tonight. But hold on. If Robb lives, then Westeros itself begins to fracture in ways you can't even imagine. The Lannisters counted on the Red Wedding to break the North's back, to silence rebellion with one bloody feast. Tywin Lannister, the cold architect of victory, believed treachery could achieve what armies could not. But if Robb survives and betrayal fails, Tywin's perfect game crumbles. Instead of shattering the wolf pack, he has roused it to fury. And trust me, an enraged North with its king alive is a storm no southern lion can withstand. The Game of Thrones shifts in that instant, and its echoes shake every castle from Winterfell to King's Landing. Here's where it gets insane. Imagine the moment Robb rises from the banquet table, his voice steady but his words laced with iron. He thanks Lord Frey for his hospitality, yet his eyes cut sharper than any blade. Every man in the hall feels the unspoken threat. Try it and see what happens. The feast becomes a standoff, a hall full of blades hidden beneath tables, but no one daring to strike first. Because Robb Stark is no longer prey. He's a predator waiting for the first move. And when nothing happens, when the treachery stalls in silence, the entire course of the war shifts. Walder Frey loses his nerve, Bolton hides his intent, and Robb walks out of the twins alive. The Red Wedding, the most infamous betrayal in Westerosi history, collapses before it ever begins. Now, let's think about the cost of survival. Robb knows he's been betrayed in intent, if not in action. He knows the Freys and Boltons cannot be trusted, no matter what masks they wear. And that knowledge changes everything. Instead of bleeding loyalty into poison cups, he reclaims the wolf's pride. He withdraws from the twins, his banners following with cold silence, and the north begins to harden. His men whisper of omens, of how the old gods protected their king, of how even death itself recoiled before the House Stark. Morale soars, and where despair once grew, vengeance now takes root. This is not just survival, it is rebirth. And here's the part that will blow your mind. Robb Stark alive means the North has a chance not just to fight, but to win. No longer shattered by betrayal, the young wolf rallies his bannermen, strengthens alliances, and prepares for a war that will echo across generations. Tywin's calculated cruelty backfires, because instead of ending the war in one bloody night, he has given it a second life, fiercer than before. Every raven that flies south carries the same message. The Starks endured, the trap failed, and winter is still coming. And in the Game of Thrones, that single twist changes everything. The word spreads faster than wildfire across the Riverlands. The Red Wedding never happened. The Starks walked into the twins and walked out again, their king alive, their banners intact, their enemies humiliated. Whispers crawl along muddy roads and across tavern tables, carried by merchants, deserters, and singers who sense a new song rising. The story shifts from tragedy to miracle. The young wolf, warned by the spirit of his father, slipped the noose meant for him and turned a night of slaughter into a night of revelation. For the men who follow him, it feels like destiny itself has shifted, the gods bending the threads of fate to shield the North's cause. And in war, belief can be as powerful as any sword. Inside the twins, Lord Walder Frey seethes. His plan for eternal glory, his pact with the Lions of Casterly Rock, his chance to crush the insult Robb Stark inflicted by breaking his marriage pact. All of it withers in the stale air of his cold hall. He knows the truth. He hesitated. He blinked when he should have drawn blood. The boy king left his hall not in pieces, but in strength, and every bannerman knows it. Walder's pride burns hotter than the candles on his long tables. He begins to curse his sons, his daughters, even his own trembling hands, because a chance will never come again so easily. And when word reaches him that the Starks now ride with renewed fury, his old bones quake, not with age, but with the dread of wolves hunting vengeance. Meanwhile, Roose Bolton masked his fury with silence. In the original tale, he was to plunge his dagger into Robb's heart at the peak of betrayal, earning the North's lordship and Lannister favor. But now, denied his moment, he must play another game. He tells himself that patience will serve him better, that he can still twist events toward his advantage. Yet the seed of doubt grows within him, because Robb's survival means Bolton's treachery will not go unnoticed forever. A wolf's eyes are sharper after the smell of betrayal, and Robb now watches his inner circle with suspicion he never bore before. Bolton smiles thinly, but in the quiet of his chambers, he wonders if his own hesitation has sealed his doom. For Catelyn Stark, survival tastes like both relief and terror. She knows how close death came to devouring her son and herself. Every glance at Robb fills her with both gratitude and dread, because she understands the fragility of the moment. She remembers her husband's warnings, his cautious nature, his insistence that honor and vigilance were the shields of House Stark. And now, for the first time since Ned's execution, she feels his presence guiding them. In the cold corridors of the twins, she whispers prayers not of thanks, but vengeance, because she knows Walder Frey and his brood will never forgive humiliation. The game is no longer simple survival. It is war sharpened by the edge of betrayal. Back in King's Landing, Tywin Lannister awaits word of triumph. He envisions the end of Northern defiance, the collapse of Robb's rebellion, the cementing of his family's power across the realm. But when the Raven arrives, carrying not victory but failure, the Lion's calm shatters in private. His allies have faltered. His carefully constructed scheme has collapsed. He cannot show his anger, for Tywin's face is a mass of control, but in the silence of Solar he understands something chilling. The war has not ended, and worse, The Starks may grow stronger from this escape. For the first time in years, Tywin feels a faint sting of uncertainty. His greatest weapon, fear, is weakened, because if betrayal cannot kill the young wolf, then who can? The small council buzzes with whispers. Cersei scoffs, claiming the wolves are nothing but northern children playing at kings. Joffrey rages, demanding Robb's head as if his tantrums could conjure armies. Tyrion, however, senses the deeper shift. He knows that stories matter, that symbols guide men as much as gold or steel. A Stark king cheated death at the very moment of betrayal. That tale will spread through camps and villages like wildfire. And once men begin to believe a king is blessed by gods or fate, battles are no longer fought only on fields but in the hearts of soldiers. Tyrion warns his father of this, but Tywin dismisses him with a cold glare. Yet the truth lingers. A miracle in the north is a threat no Lannister gold can silence. And here's where it gets insane. Imagine the river lords who bent toward Frey power suddenly feeling the shift. If Walder Frey cannot even secure his vengeance in his own hall, why should they trust him as overlord? If Robb Stark walks free, strong and alive, perhaps their loyalty should tilt once more to the wolf. Families long bound by blood to Riverrun begin to reconsider. The Blackfish, Brynden Tully, rallies men with renewed hope, his defiance sharper than ever. The Riverlands, scarred by war and betrayal, begin to stir again, not with despair, but with the simmering embers of rebellion reignited. Robb himself changes in subtle but powerful ways. The boy who once trusted too easily now looks at every lord, every bannerman, with new eyes. He no longer assumes loyalty is unbreakable. He no longer assumes honor is universal. He begins to mirror his father's quiet caution, blending wolfish pride with stark steel. The lesson of the twins hardens him. He swears to himself that he will not be caught again, that no feast, no smile, no pledge of bread and salt will ever blind him to danger. His war council notices a shift. Where once their king burned with youthful fire, now he tempers it with cold suspicion. And that balance makes him far more dangerous than before. The Freys, humiliated and exposed, send panic ravens to Casterly Rock, begging Tywin for guidance. But Tywin knows the truth. Failures are not forgiven easily in the Game of Thrones. Walder Frey has proven himself unreliable, his sons incompetent, his house weak. If the Lannisters cannot trust him to finish what he started, then perhaps they will leave him to the wolves' mercy. The old man's ambition curdles into fear, and for the first time in decades, Walder Frey feels the weight of being small in a world ruled by giants. His hall reeks not of triumph but of desperation. And here's the twist. Robb's survival sends shockwaves even to the wall. The Black brothers hear rumors of the Red wedding that wasn't. And some begin to whisper that the king in the north is chosen by the gods to stand against greater storms. For Jon Snow, his half-brother's survival is more than distant news. It is a reminder that his family still breathes, still fights, still matters. The cold winds rising beyond the wall are no less threatening, but the spark of Robb's survival lights something inside Jon's heart. He is not as alone as he feared, and that truth will shape choices yet to come. So let's pause for a second. Can you feel how massive this change is already? The Red wedding was supposed to end the North. Instead, it strengthens them. Tywin's perfect move has collapsed. Frey honor is in ruins, and Bolton treachery lies exposed beneath layers of suspicion. The war drums beat louder, not softer, and every raven that flies from the twins now carries a single unspoken warning to every lord in Westeros. The wolves are not finished. And if you thought the Game of Thrones was bloody before, trust me, you haven't seen anything yet. The Riverlands feel the tremor first. Families that once whispered of Frey dominance begin to reconsider their loyalties. The Blackwoods, ever cautious but proud, see Robb's survival as proof that the gods favor the Starks. The Brackens, always rivals to the Blackwoods, hesitate, unwilling to commit fully to Frey protection when the wolves still roam alive. Small folk murmur in markets that bread and salt no longer bind, that oaths no longer matter, but that wolves cannot be starved. This shift, subtle and dangerous, plants the seeds for rebellion against Frey power. Where fear once ruled, doubt begins to spread, and doubt is the poison of tyrants. At Riverrun, Edmure Tully, long held as a hostage piece in Gritter Games, receives word that his sister and nephew live. Relief floods his heart, but also shame. He recalls a moment he was forced into a Frey marriage, a pawn traded to secure peace. Now that peace is broken, and the wolves still march. For Brynden the Blackfish, this news is more than personal. It is strategic. He seizes on survival of Robb to rally those lords still wavering. With measured words and cold eyes, he reminds them that the Lannisters sought to break the Riverlands with knives at a feast and failed. That failure will not be forgotten. Men ride under his banners once more, their loyalty not to Edmure, but to the wolf who cheated death. But here's the part that twists the knife. Every raven that flies south brings not silence, but humiliation for House Frey. In King's Landing, courtiers laugh in hushed voices at Lord Walder's incompetence. The man who swore he would drown the wolf in blood has instead watched him walk free. And though Tywin Lannister masks his fury, his reputation takes a subtle wound. His strength lies not only in golden armies, but in the illusion that he cannot be outplayed. Now, whispers in the capital hint that perhaps the lion is not infallible, that perhaps his claws can miss their strike. And in a world where perception matters as much as victory, such whispers are daggers. For Robb Stark, survival brings not triumph but heavy choices. He knows his war has changed. No longer can he trust the oaths of allies so easily. The Freys will not forget this insult, and the Bolton silence reeks of hidden treachery. He summons his council in hushed tones, his mother at his side, his bannermen tense in their seats. Where once Robb spoke with the fire of youth, now he measures each word with care. He vows that the North will never again be so vulnerable. His commanders hear the weight in his tone, the shift from boy to hardened king. The red wedding that never was has left a scar all the same, one that steels him for the wars yet to come. And what of Roose Bolton? He returns to the Dreadfort, cold eyes masking a simmering fury. His plots were meant to end in fire and glory, a dagger in the heart of his king, and now he must swallow patience instead. He tells himself that time will give him another chance, but deep inside, unease festers. Robb's new suspicion is dangerous. A wolf who has tasted treachery will not forget the scent. Bolton begins to fear that his chance of betrayal has already slipped through his fingers, that his house's ambitions may shrivel under the weight of Stark vigilance. His bastard son, Ramsay, grows restless, dreaming of cruelty and chaos. But even Ramsay senses that striking at wolves who know they're hunted is no easy sport. The Boltons, once so confident, now live in quiet dread of discovery. And here's where it gets insane. The North itself, hearing that their king lives, surges with renewed energy. In Winterfell's cold ruins, whispers spread among survivors that Robb's escape is no accident but the work of the old gods. In the icy winds beyond the wall, the tale of a wolf who dodged a trail begins to merge with older prophecies, the kind that speak of chosen kings and battles yet to come. Men who once despaired at endless war begin to believe again. Belief breeds loyalty, and loyalty breeds armies. The young wolf is no longer just a commander. He is becoming a legend. The Lannisters know this truth, even if they refuse to admit it. Tywin begins recalculating. He considers sending more gold, more men, to the Riverlands, but he knows the cost of appearing desperate. Cersei mocks the phrase in private, her scorn dripping into the ears of courtiers who carry it further. Joffrey stamps his feet and demands Robb's head on a pike. But Tyrion watches carefully, and he sees what the others do not. This failure plants seeds of instability. It gives enemies of the Lannisters courage. It tells every house that loyalty bought by fear might waver if fear no longer guarantees survival. Tyrion warns his father again, but his words fall on cold ears. Tywin believes he can still tighten his grip. Yet the lion's grip, once unbreakable, begins to tremble. South in Dragonstone, Stannis Baratheon hears of the failed Red Wedding. He is grim by nature, but even he recognizes opportunity when it strikes. If the wolves still fight, then perhaps the lions are weaker than they appear. Melisandre whispers of omens, of fires that show the wolf walking through a storm of blood, but unbroken. Stannis frowns, for he is no man of wolves, but he knows that every blow against the Lannisters is one that strengthens his claim. And if Robb Stark still holds the loyalty of the North, then perhaps an alliance might not be impossible. For the first time, the idea of wolves and stags uniting against lions flickers in the shadows of Dragonstone. and across the narrow sea, Daenerys Targaryen learns fragments of the tale. To her, it is distant news, the politics of a land she has yet to set foot in. But the lesson lingers. Treachery failed to kill a king, and the realm shudders in response. She sees in a reflection of her own cause. If betrayal could not destroy the wolf, then perhaps destiny itself favors those who refuse to die. She carries that thought with her as she grows her army, never realizing how intertwined her fate will one day be with the boy king who dodged death in a hall of traitors. Robb's march continues. Every step away from the twins feels like defiance. Every banner snapping in the wind feels like a promise. His men, who once feared that doom stalked their king, now march with pride. Songs change. Where once they whispered of the young wolf's victories fading, now they sing of his escape, of how he stared treachery in the eye and walked away. The North remembers, yes, but now the Riverlands do as well. And if memory is fuel, then vengeance is fire. That fire begins to spread, threatening to engulf everything in its path. So here's the question we're left with. If the wolf walks free, if the Feast of Knives collapses into silence, then what hope remains for the lions? Tywin's greatest gambit has failed, his allies falter, and the realm begins to sense weakness. And in the Game of Thrones, once weakness is scented, every predator sharpens its claws. The war is far from over. It is only just beginning. The longer Robb marches after leaving the twins, the clearer the truth becomes. War has shifted from blood and steel to whispers and trust. Every rider who gallops to Riverrun, every bannerman who whispers to his household, carries the same tale. The Starks live, the Freys failed, and the Lannisters' iron grip isn't unbreakable. It is a story sharper than swords, and Robb knows he must wield it as carefully as any blade. For every ally who returns in hope, another looks at him with suspicion, wondering what else he knows, what other traps he can sense. His survival is both a blessing and a shadow, because it turns him into something more than human, into a symbol that cannot be ignored. Catelyn feels it before Robb admits it. She sees how lords who once eyed him as a boy now bow with new respect. His refusal to fall in the greatest betrayal of their time makes him untouchable in their eyes. Yet she also knows this adoration is dangerous. The higher the North raises him, the more desperate his enemies will become. Every word she whispers to him carries that warning. Survive was miracle enough, but survival will tempt fate to test you again. She clutches her prayer beads tighter at night, speaking Ned's name as if her husband can hear, begging that their son does not become so hardened he forgets mercy, or so trusting he forgets caution. Walder Frey, humiliated in his own hall, fumes in silence. He curses the gods, curses his sons, curses the very bread and salt he once thought his shield. His ambition was to bind himself forever to history by slaying the young wolf. Instead, he has written himself as a fool. His anger turns to desperation, desperation to recklessness. He sends word to Tywin Lannister that he will try again, that he will find another way to spill Stark blood. But even Tywin has begun to doubt him. A man who fails once may be excused. A man who fails at his moment of greatest triumph becomes an anchor dragging down his allies. Walder's pleas are met with silence, and in that silence, he begins to understand the true danger. If the Lannisters abandon him, the wolves will not. Roose Bolton returns to the Dreadfort, but every raven that flies across the north whispers his name with new suspicion. The Starks may not know his exact part in Frey treachery, but the air of disloyalty clings to him like shadow. Robb watches him more carefully, his counsel colder, his trust thinner. Roose realizes he cannot strike now, not with Robb's men bristling at any hint of betrayal. He must wait, must bide his time, must let the wolf believe in him long enough to lower his guard again. But that patience is poisoned by fear, because every day Robb grows harder, wiser, more difficult to ensnare. Ramsay's cruelty festers unchecked in the background, but even Ramsay's chaos cannot mask the truth. Bolton ambition is cornered, and cornered wolves are the most dangerous of all. The political map of Westeros shifts subtly but dangerously. Riverrun, once resigned to despair, begins to stir with fresh defiance. The river lords who swore grudging fealty to Frey promises now reconsider. If the wolves still fight, why kneel to cowards who fail to draw their blades? Brenda and Blackfish spreads this message with quiet precision, reminding every house that Robb's march proves resilience, that the Red Wedding's failure is not a sign of weakness but a divine favor. Slowly, ever so slowly, levies gather again, smaller banners return, and what was nearly extinguished begins to burn brighter. The Riverlands are not healed, but they are no longer bleeding. And here's where it gets insane. Tywin Lannister, master of order and cold calculation, finds himself forced into defense. His letters spread across the realm faster than ravens can fly, calling bannermen to tighten their grip, ordering spies to infiltrate camps, offering gold to any who will betray wolf movements. But every coin he spends feels heavier than the last. He won a war by orchestrating betrayal, but betrayal has lost its sting. The North now expects it. The wolves sniff it out before it strikes. His perfect weapon is dulled, and without it, he must turn back to brute force. Yet brute force is costly, and costly wars demand blood and gold alike. Even lions grow weary when stretched too far. The small council fractures over what to do. Joffrey, childish and cruel, demands Robb's death more loudly than ever, spitting that he should be paraded through the streets. Cersei sneers that the North will never last long, that winter and famine will do their work. But Tyrion alone speaks with clarity. He warns that killing Robb now will not be enough, that the wolves will sing louder with every attempt on his life. He says that symbols are stronger than men, and that Robb Stark has become one already. Tywin dismisses him with icy disdain, but Tyrion knows the truth. Every time the young wolf cheats death, the lions grow weaker, and weakness, once smelled, cannot be hidden. Robb himself begins to reshape his war. He calls councils not just of his bannermen, but of his mother of the Blackfish, of men he once left at the edges of planning. He listens more, speaks less, weighs more carefully. Where once he charged into victories, now he stalks them like a hunter circling prey. His army feels a shift. They no longer see a boy king. They see a hardened wolf. Songs begin to change, not just of victories, but of endurance. Bards sing of how knives failed to pierce him, how treachery bent but did not break him, how he carries his father's spirit in his step. The North remembers, yes, but now they also believe the gods themselves remember. And beyond the narrow sea, Daenerys hears again of the wolf who lived. To her, it is still rumor, still distant, but her advisors whisper meaning. They say Westeros is tearing itself apart, but some say the boy king may unite men by survival alone. Daenerys frowns, for she knows her destiny is to reclaim the throne. Yet she also knows that those who cheat death are dangerous to oppose. She makes note of his name, Robb Stark, knowing one day, perhaps, their paths may cross. But perhaps the greatest ripple lies beyond the wall. The Black brothers murmur in their halls that the Starks endure, that their blood is touched by something older than kings. Some wonder if the old gods themselves shielded Robb. Jon Snow hears the words, and though he knows them only as rumor, a fire stirs in his chest. His family is not gone. His brother fights still. That knowledge steels him, reminding him that the blood of wolves still runs in his veins, and that his duty at the wall is not isolated from the war of thrones below. Somewhere deep inside, he begins to sense that survival itself may be part of a larger destiny, one that binds both him and his brother to storms greater than crowns. So pause for just a second. Can you feel it? This is no longer just a rebellion in the Riverlands. This is a war that refuses to die, a cause sharpened by betrayal, a fire stoked by survival. Tywin's greatest move has failed. Walder Frey is broken. Roose Bolton is cornered, and Robb Stark is no longer just a king. He is becoming a living symbol, a story too powerful to silence. And in the Game of Thrones, stories kill as easily as swords. Robb Stark's army marches with the weight of survival on its back and the fire of vengeance in its heart. Every campfire burns brighter. Every horn sounds louder, because the men know they escaped not just death but humiliation. To them, the Red Wedding was supposed to end their cause forever, yet they still ride under a living king. That knowledge hardens their resolve. Each village they pass whispers his name like a blessing. Each river lord who once faltered now hesitates before bending to lions or Freys. Slowly, grudgingly, some return. And with every man who comes back, Robb's war grows sharper, leaner, more focused. The North remembers. But now, the Riverlands begin to remember too. Walder Frey cannot escape the stench of failure. His sons bicker, his household loses discipline, and his bannermen mutter behind his back. He thought to secure eternal glory by cutting down the young wolf, but instead his hall reeks of cowardice. His old bones feel colder, because he knows the wolves will never forget. He sees the shadow of Robb's vengeance every time a raven wings past his towers. His meals taste bitter, his wine soured, for he cannot rid himself of the thought that Stark's steel may one day return for him. The red wedding was meant to crown him with triumph. Instead, it has shackled him to fear. Roose Bolton masks his fury better, but he too feels the jaws closing. His dagger never pierced Robb's heart, and that failure gnaws at him. He speaks softly, smiles faintly, but he sees how Robb's eyes linger too long, how bannermen whisper of wolves betrayed and traitors unmasked. He knows his chance is slipping. Patience was once his ally, but now patience turns to poison. Every step Robb takes makes him harder to kill. Every night that passes weaves him deeper into legend. Ramsay urges chaos, hungers for blood, but even Ramsay understands that open rebellion will be suicide while the Wolf King watches so closely. The Dread Fort, once confident in its schemes, begins to feel like a cage. Meanwhile, in King's Landing, Tywin Lannister begins to unravel threads that once seemed unbreakable. His enemies sense it first. The Martells whisper of lions losing their bite. The Tyrells weigh how much strength truly lies in alliance with a house that cannot kill a wolf. Tywin hides his fury, but in the privacy of his chambers he feels it. His name, once enough to end wars, now stumbles in tavern songs. Even his allies laugh in secret at the failure of the twins. For the first time in years, his enemies believe he can bleed, and belief is a weapon sharper than Valyrian steel. Cersei mocks the phrase, but her laughter is brittle. She fears that cracks in her father's perfect control mean cracks in her own shield. Joffrey rages, demanding Robb's head more loudly than ever. But his tantrums only sharpen the court's whispers. What kind of king depends on his grandfather's failed plots? Only Tyrion sees the true danger clearly. He warns that Robb Stark's survival is not just political, it is symbolic. He tells his father that every moment the boy king lives, his legend grows, and legends can outlast even gold. Tywin dismisses him coldly, but the truth lingers in Tyrion's mind. The wolves are not beaten. They are only angrier. The Riverlands themselves grow restless. Villages that once submitted to Frey, levies now send grain to Stark camps in secret. Young boys dream of taking up arms for the young wolf, while old men tell stories of how betrayal failed to kill him. Songs shift again, no longer dirges of despair, but ballads of defiance. A king who walks out of a hall meant to be his tomb cannot be ignored, even in distant corners of the realm. Men who never swore loyalty to Winterfell feel their hearts stir at the tale. Legends grow in the telling, and already the story of Robb Stark is being told as if the gods themselves bent fate to shield him. And here's where it gets insane. Alliances begin to twist in unexpected ways. Stannis Baratheon, still grimly pursuing his claim, hears the tale and wonders if the wolf might be a useful ally. If the Starks bleed the lions further, then perhaps his path to the throne clears. He does not love Robb. He does not love anyone, but he respects endurance. Melisandre peers into her flames and claims she sees a wolf walking through rivers of blood, his shadow mingling with fire. She tells Stannis that the boy may be part of a larger destiny, one that even the Lord of Light cannot yet define. Stannis frowns, but he listens. Daenerys Targaryen, far across the sea, hears the rumor again in slaver markets and taverns of Essos. A boy king who escaped betrayal, who leads wolves against lions. She tucks the name away in her heart. Robb Stark. She does not yet know him, does not yet fear him, but she recognizes the shape of a story that might one day collide with her own. For she too is building legend, and legends are destined to clash. North of the Wall, Jon Snow clings to the story like a lifeline. His brother lives. His family still fights. It steels him against the frozen dread creeping from the lands of the dead. He dreams of wolves howling across endless snow, of Robb's banner flying high in storms. The Red Wedding's failure becomes his anchor, proof that fate can bend. And though he remains bound to watch, his loyalty burns hotter. He will not let the line of wolves end. He will not let his brother's legend die while he still breathes. As these stories collide, Robb himself changes. He is no longer the boy who charged blindly into battles. He is no longer the youth who believed oaths would hold because honor demanded it. He has been scarred without shedding blood. He has stared into the jaws of betrayal and walked away. And now, every decision he makes carries the weight of that survival. His council listens more carefully. His men fight more fiercely. His mother watches more proudly, though her heart aches because she sees Ned's lessons alive in their son. The young wolf is no longer just a boy king. He is becoming a hardened legend in his own time. But legends are dangerous things. They inspire loyalty, yes, but they also breed desperation in enemies. Tywin Lannister sharpens his claws once more, refusing to let a wolf dictate the realm's fate. Walder fries schemes in bitterness, dreaming of another chance to draw blood. Roose Bolton hides his plots behind silence, waiting for the wolf to blink. And all the while, Robb marches onward, banners snapping the wind, his name rising louder with every step. The red wedding that never was has become something else entirely, a myth of survival that no one can ignore. So here's the cliffhanger. What happens when every enemy sharpens their daggers, every ally weighs their loyalties, and every soldier begins to believe the gods themselves shield the wolf? In a realm built on blood and betrayal, a king who refuses to die may be the most dangerous enemy of all. The word spreads faster than wildfire across the river like a flood. The red, swollen by vengeance and sharpened by survival. Starks walked into the twins and walked out. He's not just an army, their king alive. Their banners every mile intact. He marches, burning away enemies the doubt humiliated. That once weakened whispers crawl along muddy roads and cross tavern renewed defiance, carried by merchants, banners rising where once and singers who sent a new songs carry the tale of the wolf who walked away from tragedy to miracle. And men whisper that no treachery warned by the spirit of his father. The North remembers the noose meant for him. But now the realm begins a night of slaughter into a night of revelation. Every enemy of the lions pricks the men who follow him, sensing that feels like destiny has chosen a new champion. The gods bending the threads of fate. The Tully's stronghold pulses with life again. And in war, the Blackfish rallies riders, as powerful as any young men eager to join the army of the king. Lord Walder Frey slains. Edmure, his plan for eternal once a pawn trapped by Frey pact with the lions of Castle now Rock, sees the hope of reclaiming his chance to crush the insult Robb Stark loyalty by breaking his marriage pact. No longer ashamed but withers the stale air of his Robb accepts their strength. He knows the truth, but his face remains carved in caution. He blinked, has not forgotten the smell of treachery in the twins. The boy king left nor the glances that betrayed in strength, and even among allies knows it. His Walder's pride burns hotter than words measured on his long table. He trusts. He begins to curse his sons, his daughters, the phrase even his own trembling hands. Paranoia eating them alive. Because a chance will never come again. Walder's daughters whisper vengeance. And when word reaches him that the Starks now ride with renewed fury, his every servant that slips away to join Stark camps, but Walder feels his hunting vengeance. He writes to Tywin again, promising master's fury for silence. But his words are empty. The Lannisters no longer look to Robb's heart at the peak of betrayal, but as a liability. Earning the North's lordship, his humiliation is complete. But now, where once he denied his moment the butcher of wolves, he must play another game. Now he can only pray to wolves and never return. Patience will serve him better. Bolton grows he can still twist events. His plan to end Robb quietly. Yet the seed of doubt grows within him, and with every passing Robb's survival means suspicion coils tighter around his name. Unnoticed forever. He senses that Robb's mother watches sharper after the smell betrayal. That the Blackfish Robb now watches in his circle with suspicion. He hides his intentions in silence. Bolton Ramsay is not so careful. But in the bastard's hunger for cruelty, he wonders at his own hesitation as he writes letters dripping with sadism. Catelyn Stark, boasting of hunts, survival tastes like both relief of enemies broken. She knows how close Robb's ears devouring her son and herself. The young wolf looks every glance at Robb fills her with gratitude and cold judgment of king, because she understands the realizes too late that his son's madness. She remembers her husband's warning, too bright to his cautious nature, where once the Boltons walked in shadows, honor and vigilance now they stand in Stark-like. Their treachery half exposed for the first time since Ned's execution. King's Landing feels his presence guiding them. Tywin Lannister receives reports daily. She whispers prayers not rallying, but vengeance, Frey's weakening, because she knows Walder Frey and his brood will never forgive another stone laid upon his shoulders. No longer simple survival. His perfect gambit. It is war betrayal that should have broken the North forever. Back in King's Landing, his greatest embarrassment. Tywin Lannister awaits does not show triumph, but in the privacy of the study his jaw tightens, his fist clenches, the collapse of Robb's rebellion. If Robb
cementing
of his
family's
power across
the
Lannister's grip on the realm,
but when the Raven
arrives, Cersei mocks carrying not victory, but her laughter hides unease. The lion's calm shatters
Joffrey
in private.
rages,
Calling
his
for
allies
heads,
have faltered,
but his tantrums
his carefully
only
constructed
fuel the
scheme
whispers
has
in court.
collapsed.
He
If
cannot
Tywin
show
cannot
his
kill the
anger,
wolf,
for
perhaps
Tywin's
the
face
lion
is
is
not
mass
as strong
control.
as they believe.
But in the silence,
Tyrion
his sword
watches
he
this with
understands
sharp
something
eyes.
chilling.
He sees
The
the
war
cracks
is not
forming
ended
not
in
in
worse,
armies,
the
but
Starks
in
may grow
perception.
stronger from
He
this
warns
escape.
his father,
For the first
that
time in
symbols
years,
could be more dangerous
Tywin
than
feels a
sword.
faint sting
That
of
Robb
uncertainty.
Stark's survival,
His greatest
is rewriting
weapon,
the very
fear,
song of the war,
is weakened.
Tywin ignores
because a betrayal
him,
cannot
but
kill the young
Tyrion
wolf.
knows better.
Then who
For
can?
every day the young
small
wolf
council
marches,
buzzes with whispers.
every village that sings his
Cersei
name,
scoffs.
the realm shifts.
Claiming the wolves are
Fear
nothing
of
but
lions
northern
weakens.
children playing
Hope
at
in
kings.
wolves grows.
Joffrey
And
rages.
once those scales tip,
demanding Robb's
no amount of
head
gold
as
can
his
balance him
tantrums could
again.
conjure armies.
The moment of convergence
Tyrion,
arrives,
however,
not in the twins,
senses the
nor in
deeper
River
shift.
Run,
He
on the
knows
fields
that
of the
stories
Riverlands
matter.
where Stark
That
banners
symbols
clash
guide
once
men as
more
much
with
as
gold
Lannister
or
steel.
steel.
A
Tywin
Stark
sends a
king
host to
cheated
crush
death
the
at the
Embers
very
rebellion,
moment.
betrayal, led by
That
seasoned
tale
generals
spread
who
through
believe
camps and
victory is
villages
sure.
like wildfire.
But Robb has learned too
And once
well.
men begin to believe
He
a
remembers
king is
whispering
blessed by
gods
God,
or fate.
remembers battles are no
Oxcross,
longer fought
remembers
only
that
on
his
fields,
strength
but in the
lies
hearts
not
of
only in
soldiers,
men,
but in
Tyrion
cunning.
warns his father
This
this,
time,
but
he does
Tywin
not charge
dismisses him with a
blind.
cold glare.
He lays his trap
Yet the truth
carefully,
lingers,
weaving
a
his
miracle in
wolves
the north
through
is a
forests and
threat
hills,
no Lannister
using the
gold can
Riverland's
silence.
broken terrain as
And
a
here's
blade.
where it gets insane.
And when the Lannister host
Imagine
marches,
the River Lords who
confident
bent
in
towards
numbers,
Frey
they
power
find
suddenly
themselves
feeling the
caught in
shift.
jaws
If
they
Walder
never saw
Frey
closing.
cannot
The
even
battle
secure his
explodes
vengeance
like
in his
wildfire.
own hall,
Stark
Stark
riders
trust
slam
him
into
as
flanks.
overlord.
River
If
Lords
Robb
rain
Stark
arrows
walks
from
free,
cover, and
strong
great
and
wind
alive,
howls through the
perhaps their
chaos.
loyalty should tilt
Robb
once
rides
more to
among
the
his
wolf.
men,
Family
not
is
as a
long
distant
bound
king
by
does a
blood
wolf
to
from the
River
hunt.
Run
His
begin to
blade
reconsider.
singing, his eyes
The
alive
Blackfish,
with fury.
Brenda and Tully,
The Lannisters
rallies
fight
men with
hard,
renewed hope,
but their discipline
defiance
falters
sharper
under the
than
weight
ever.
of legend.
The
Men who
Riverlands,
expected
scarred
to
by
slaughter
war and
rebels
betrayal,
instead whisper
begin to stir
that they
again,
face a king
not with
chosen by the
despair,
gods,
but with the simmering
fear
embers of
spreads
rebellion
fast and
reignited.
fire.
Robb
For every
himself
Lannister
changes
who
in
falls,
subtle but
three
powerful
more
ways.
waver.
The
The
lion
boy
who
who
once
once
trusted
trusted
too
too
easily
easily
now looks
at the heart of the
every
field.
lord, every
Robb's
bannerman
commanders
with
press
new
forward,
eyes,
driving the
he no
enemy
longer
into
assumes
disarray.
loyalty
The
is
Blackfish
unbreakable.
rides with
He
grim
no longer
determination.
assumes honor
His
is
sword
universal.
flashing in the sun.
He begins to mirror his
Caitlin
father's
watches from
quiet
ridge,
caution,
her heart
blending
pounding as
wolfish
she sees
pride
her
with
son
stark steel.
lead not
The
just
lesson
as
of
king,
the twins
but a
hardens
symbol.
him.
She
He
swears
swears
to
to
himself
himself
he
he
will
will
not be
dread,
caught again,
for she
that
knows
no
what legend
feast,
does.
no smile,
It elevates,
no pledge of bread
but it
and
also
salt
paints a
will ever
target
blind
brighter
in
than
danger.
any crown.
His war
Still,
council notices a shift.
She cannot deny what her
Where
eyes
once their
see.
king burned with
The
youthful
young
fire,
wolf is no
now he
longer
tempers
simply
it
her
with
son.
cold suspicion.
He is destined
And that
in
balance
motion.
makes him
The
far
Lannister
more
host
dangerous than
breaks.
before.
Banners
The Freys,
fall,
humiliated
one
and
sound
exposed,
and
send
survivors
panic
flee
ravens
into
to
Castle
Rock,
Robb stands
begging
upon the
Tywin
field,
for guidance,
his sword bloody.
But Tywin
his
knows
men
the truth.
roaring his name.
Failures
The
are not
victory
forgiven
is more than
easily
tactical.
in the Game
It
of
is
Thrones.
spiritual.
Walder
Word
Frey
will
has
travel
proven himself
faster than
unreliable,
ravens, carried
his
by
son's
deserters, by
incompetence is
song,
house weak,
by
if the
survivors who
Lannisters
cannot
cannot
trust him
deny
to
what they
finish what he
witnessed.
started.
The wolf
Then
who escaped
perhaps
betrayal
they will
has
leave
now
him to the
slain
wolves'
lions
mercy.
in open battle.
The old man's
His
legend
legend
is
curdles
sealed.
into fear.
His survival
For the
no
first
longer
time in
just
decades,
fortune but fate.
Walder
But
Frey
victory
feels
comes
the
at a
weight of being
cost.
small.
The battlefield
world
is
ruled
littered
by
with
giants.
corpses.
His
And
hall
Robb
reeks
feels the
not
weight
of
of
triumph,
every
but
man
of
who dies
desperation.
under his banner.
And here's the
His
twist.
heart hardens further.
Robb's survival
His
sends
resolve
shockwaves
sharper than steel.
even to the wall.
He knows
The
the
Black
war is
brothers
not
hear
over.
rumors of the
He
Red
knows
Wedding
Tywin
that
will
wasn't.
strike again,
And
fiercer,
some begin to
more
whisper that the
desperate.
king in the north
He knows
is
Walder
chosen by the
Frey still
gods to
schemes.
stand against
Bruce
greater
Bolton
storms.
still waits,
and
for
Cersei
Jon
still
Snow,
poisons the court.
his half-brother
Yet he
survivor,
also
was more
knows
than
something
distant
deeper.
news. He has
It is a
become more
reminder
than
that his
king.
family still
He has
breathes,
become the story
still
his enemies
fights,
fear
still
most.
matters. A story
The
they
cold
cannot
winds
kill.
rising beyond the
Across
wall
the realm,
are no less threatening.
reactions explode.
But the spark of
In
Robb's
Dorne,
survival
Martell
lights something
envoys smile
inside Jon's
quietly.
heart.
He
He
is
is
not
not
as
as alone
alone
as
as
he
he
feared.
feared.
In
And
the
that
reach,
truth will shape
Tyrell
choices
whispers,
yet to
"Turn
come.
cautious."
So let's
Weighing pause for a second. On Dragonstone,
feel how massive this
Stannis
change is
hears
already?
the victory, and
The
Red
Red
Wedding
acknowledges
was
that the
supposed to end
Wolves'
the
war
North.
weakens the Lions.
Instead, it strengthens
beyond
them.
the narrow sea.
Tywin's perfect move
Daenerys
has
hears again of Robb Stark
Frey
and
wonders
wonders
what
what
kind of realms you
and
inherit.
Bolton treachery
The
lies
wolves carve it
exposed
apart
beneath
before
layers
she
of
arrives.
suspicion.
And
And
the war
the
drums
wall.
beat louder.
Jon Snow
not
dreams
soft
of her,
howls
and
and
every
every
raven
that
His
flies
brother's
from the
voice
twins
echoing
now
in
carries
winds
a
that
single
cut deeper
unspoken
than
warning
knives.
to every lord in Westeros. The wolves are not finished. And if you thought the Game of Thrones was bloody before, trust me, you haven't seen anything yet. The climax is not just a battle. It is a revelation. Robb Stark, who should have died in a hall of treachery, now stands as the most dangerous man in Westeros. Not because of armies, not because of crowns, but because of story. And stories cannot be killed with swords. They live in the hearts of men. And in those hearts, the young wolf has already won. So here's the final twist of the climax. Tywin Lannister, the man who thought betrayal was the sharpest weapon in the Game of Thrones, realizes he has created something he cannot control. By failing to kill Robb Stark, he has forged a legend that will haunt him to his dying breath. And legends, once born, never die quietly. The battlefield lies quiet now, broken only by the moans of the dying and the call of circling crows. Robb Stark rides slowly among the corpses, his men following in grim silence. Victory has been won, but the price is carved into the earth in blood and steel. His face is streaked with dirt and sweat, his sword still red, but his eyes are distant. For every lion slain, he sees the wolves who fell beside them. The cheers of his men echo behind him, but he does not smile. Kings may win battles, but sons cannot bring back the fathers and brothers left cold in the mud. This truth weighs heavier than any crown. Catelyn watches her son with a heart torn in two. Pride swells in her chest, for he has done what no one thought possible. He has survived betrayal, shattered Lannister hosts, and turned despair into hope. Yet fear gnaws at her, sharper than pride. She knows the North will follow him now not just as king, but as legend. Legends inspire loyalty, but they also invite daggers sharper than any steel. She remembers Ned, remembers how honor alone could not protect him from the Game of Thrones, and she fears her son's growing myth will end the same way. Still, she cannot help but whisper a prayer of thanks, her voice trembling in the wind. The old gods and seven alike have carried him this far. She begs them to carry him farther still. The river lords who fought beside him kneel in the mud, pledging loyalty anew. The Blackfish rides tall, his stern face softening with rare satisfaction as he sees hope flicker once more across the riverlands. Songs begin that very night, sung by wounded men who lived to see lions break. They sing of the young wolf who cheated knives, who slaughtered lions in the open field, who carries winter in his very breath. The tale spreads faster than fire, and before the blood even dries, the realm is already reshaped. In taverns, in villages, in keeps, men whisper that perhaps fate itself has chosen Robb Stark. But fate is never simple. In King's Landing, Tywin Lannister receives the news of defeat with a silence colder than any scream. He dismisses his counsel with a wave of his hand. But in the stillness of his chamber, he allows his mask to crack. His war is no longer secure. His reputation, built on inevitability, is bleeding away. The Red Wedding was meant to end this rebellion before it grew too costly. Instead, the rebellion thrives, and worse, it thrives as a legend. He knows the truth. Gold can buy swords, but it cannot buy faith. And faith in a king who refuses to die is a storm that may drown even lions. Walder Frey hides behind his walls, cursing his sons, cursing the gods, cursing his own cowardice. He was promised glory, yet he has become a laughingstock. No lord dares trust him now. No house respect him. His name is whispered with scorn, his daughters mocked, his halls filled with unease. He thought to bind himself to history with blood, but instead history has marked him as a fool. He feels the wolves circling already, and for the first time, Walder Frey fears that even his walls may not save him. Roose Bolton grows quieter still, his silence a mask over roiling fury. He knows Robb's suspicion lingers, and Ramsay's madness festers unchecked. His chance is past, and though he tells himself patience may return it, he knows deep down that the wolf he once planned to betray has grown too cautious, too hardened. His family's name, once poised to rise on the fall of the Starks, now hangs by a thread. He says nothing, but in his heart he wonders if the Dreadfort itself may one day burn. Far across the narrow sea, Daenerys hears the tale once more. The young wolf lives. She thinks little of it yet, but her counselors whisper of how stories like his shaped kingdoms. She files it away in her mind, her eyes always fixed westward. When she comes, she wonders what kind of realm she will find. Will it be one shattered by wolves and lions, or one already united under a legend she does not yet understand? And at the wall, Jon Snow hears the whispers. His brother lives, his banners still fly. His war continues. He allows himself one small smile, one brief flicker of warmth in the endless cold. He knows the true war lies in the far north, in the dark rising beyond the wall, but the knowledge that his family still breathes steels his resolve. He swears silently that whatever fate awaits them all, the line of wolves will not end while he still draws breath. So the world shifts. A wedding that was meant to be a tomb instead becomes a turning point. A king who should have been butchered in betrayal instead walks free, hardened, and crowned in legend. The Lannisters bleed. The Freys are shamed. The Boltons are cornered, and the North surges with pride. And in every corner of Westeros, from tavern songs to council chambers, one truth spreads faster than any raven. The young wolf still hunts. And in the Game of Thrones, a hunter who refuses to die is the most dangerous predator of all. The longer Robb marches after leaving the twins, the smoke of battle still curling toward the heavens. War has shifted from blood and steel stands upon the ramparts of Riverrun. Every rider who gallops to Riverrun, the weight of crown and legend heavier than the steel at his hip, carries the same tale. He knows victories are fleeting. The Starks live, yet tonight, the Freys fail, he allows himself the Lannisters' one rare moment of stillness. Unbreakable. He survived the knives sharper than swords. He bled the lions on his own field as carefully as any blade. He carries the North's hope on his shoulders. Every ally who returns, but behind his eyes lingers another looks at him with father once taught him, wondering what else he knows. Winter always comes. What other traps he can never won so easily. His survival is both a blessing and a shadow. His soldiers feast because it turns him into something more than gratitude. They sing songs of the that cannot be ignored. Verses of treachery Caitlin feels it before battles won. She sees how lords are once items boy now bow with that no blade can pierce him. His refusal to fall in the greatest betrayal of their time. Faith hardens makes him untouchable in their eyes. Ever could. Yet she also tells her children the tale of how the gods turned aside knives. The higher the North of how the wolf walked free, the more desperate all expected him to die. Legends are born out of crowns, but carries that warning. And Robb's stories survive with miracle and silence. But survival will tempt fate both ways to test you again. In the shadows of she clutches her prayer Walder Frey feels the walls closing Speaking in. Ned's name, his name is mocked in every tavern, begging that their son cowardice sung so hard he forgets mercy, where once he imagined himself immortalized in power. Walder now finds himself humiliated in his own hall. He paces his silence. Snarling curses the gods, lashing out at curses his sons, but nothing curses the very bread and salt he once thought his failure has carved his ambition was to bind himself forever to history. The wolves will not slay the young wolf, and history will not forget. He has written himself as a fool. Bolton sharpens his anger turns to desperation, but every scrape of steel sounds hollow. He sends word to Tywin-Lannister that he will try ambition suffocate that he will find another way to spill Stark. He tells himself another chance. Even Tywin has begun that the wolf will falter. A man who fails once may be excused. But deep down, he feels at his moment of greatest triumph. His house becomes an anchor dragging down his allies. Betrayal is no longer Walder's pleas are met with silence. It is a death sentence. And in that silence, he begins to understand the true rise on the ashes of Stark defeat. If the Lannisters now find themselves crushed under the weight of Stark survival, Roose Bolton King's Landing seethes with unease. But every raven that flies across maintains whispers his name with new suspicion. But cracks whisper Starks may not know his exact children by treachery. His grandson heir disloyalty clings to him like shadow. He tells himself Robb watches him more carefully. His counsel he knows the truth. His trust. A legend has been forged. Roose realizes he cannot strike. The Red Wedding was supposed to prove that lions bristling at any hint of betrayal. Fear and cunning. He must wait. Instead, must bide his time. It has proven that wolves cannot believe in him long enough to lower his guard again. His letters grow sharper. His commands colder. But even Tywin cannot silence the story already spreading across every hearth in Westeros. Ramsay's far across the sea, unchecked in the background. Daenerys Targaryen but even Ramsay's chaos cannot mask chanting her name. Bolton ambition is cornered. Even she hears the Wolf King in Westeros, the most dangerous of all. The boy who survived the political map of Westeros shifts subtly. She smiles dangerously. For she knows the truth of stories. Once resigned to despair, hers grows begins to stir with fresh defiance. His grows in survival. The river lords who swore one day fealty, perhaps Frey promises now reconsider. And when they do, the wolves still fight. The realm will shake. Why kneel the cowards who fail to draw their blades? Jon Snow gazes out into his message with quiet precision. His thoughts straying reminding every house that still fights. His house still lives, and for the first time, failure is not a sign of weakness, but feels the weight of family in his chest. Yet beyond the frozen horizon, levies gather again. He hears other whispers. Smaller banners return, cold, and what was nearly extinguished. He knows that the true war does not wait for kings are not or crowns, but they are no longer bleeding. His brother's survival and here's where it gets insane, reminding him that Tywin-Lannister, no matter how dark cold calculation. So what becomes of Westeros into this world with a red wedding? His letters spread across the realm. The north is not broken. The riverlands are not bled dry. Ordering spies to infiltrate camps with certainty, offering gold to any who will betray. The realm trembles with uncertainty. But every coin caught between feels heavy will not die. Lions won a war by orchestrating betrayal, and dragons who wade across the sea. Betrayal has lost every lord, every small north now expects every whisper feels. The wolves sniff it out. That history has changed. That perfect weapon is dulled, and without it, in the center of it, he must turn back the boy who should have died. Yet but brute force is costly. A boy who carries not just the demand, but the weight of a story too powerful to silence. Even lions grow weary. This is a truth that echoes louder than any small council fractures over what to do. Once a legend is born, Joffrey, it cannot be killed. The Red Wedding became Robb's death more loudly than ever. A night remembered not spitting for that he should be paraded through the streets. The wolf who walked away. Cersei sneers, and from that moment never lasts long. Every man who bent the knee, and famine will every do their soldier work. Who raised a sword. But Tyrion alone, every lord who weighed loyalty against fear, he warns that killing Robb now will not be enough. If treachery itself could not sing louder with every attempt on perhaps nothing could. He says that symbols are stronger than men. That makes Robb Stark has become the most dangerous king of all. Tywin dismisses him with icy disdain, but Tyrion knows the truth. Every time the young wolf cheats death, the lions grow weaker, and weakness, once smelled, cannot be hidden. Robb himself begins to reshape his war. He calls councils not just of his bannermen, but of his mother of the Blackfish, of men he once left at the edges of planning. He listens more, speaks less, weighs more carefully. Where once he charged into victories, now he stalks them like a hunter circling prey. His army feels a shift. They no longer see a boy king. They see a hardened wolf. Songs begin to change, not just of victories, but of endurance. Bards sing of how knives failed to pierce him, how treachery bent but did not break him, how he carries his father's spirit in his step. The North remembers, yes, but now they also believe the gods themselves remember. And beyond the narrow sea, Daenerys hears again of the wolf who lived. To her, it is still rumor, still distant, but her advisors whisper meaning. They say Westeros is tearing itself apart, but some say the boy king may unite men by survival alone. Daenerys frowns, for she knows her destiny is to reclaim the throne. Yet she also knows that those who cheat death are dangerous to oppose. She makes note of his name, Robb Stark, knowing one day, perhaps, their paths may cross. But perhaps the greatest ripple lies beyond the wall. The Black brothers murmur in their halls that the Starks endure, that their blood is touched by something older than kings. Some wonder if the old gods themselves shielded Robb. Jon Snow hears the words, and though he knows them only as rumor, a fire stirs in his chest. His family is not gone. His brother fights still. That knowledge steels him, reminding him that the blood of wolves still runs in his veins, and that his duty at the wall is not isolated from the war of thrones below. Somewhere deep inside, he begins to sense that survival itself may be part of a larger destiny, one that binds both him and his brother to storms greater than crowns. So pause for just a second. Can you feel it? This is no longer just a rebellion in the Riverlands. This is a war that refuses to die, a cause sharpened by betrayal, a fire stoked by survival. Tywin's greatest move has failed. Walder Frey is broken. Roose Bolton is cornered, and Robb Stark is no longer just a king. He is becoming a living symbol, a story too powerful to silence. And in the Game of Thrones, stories kill as easily as swords.